Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Glad to have you as we head towards the weekend. Here's what we're going to cover today. A registered sex offender is running for office in California, of all places. And some people think that it's kind of normal and acceptable to do so. We have the full story. Some Republican strategists believe there was a moment in President Trump's State of the Union that may have turned the tide in the midterm elections. Do you know when that might have been? And the Democrats who chose to boycott the State of the Union may have misplayed their cards. We have a wrap-up of the State of the Union response. The FBI spent several hours at Nancy Guthrie's Arizona home yesterday conducting one more sweep for evidence before deciding whether her family can return to the property, with sources saying this may be the first time they admit they have hit a brick wall in the investigation. And the South Carolina Senate passed a $309 million income tax cut that casts a broader net and will benefit many more filers than the initial proposal. We have the details of this tax cut in South Carolina in today's show.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
We often talk about how California is a different world within itself. They're just different out there, aren't they? They have different ideas, different views. Well, this next story may be stretching things a little too far, even for California. As liberal and as crazy as they are out there, here's a story. According to the Daily Caller News Foundation, Renee Campos is a registered sex offender and has launched a campaign to represent Fresno, California's District 7 on the city council, according to ABC TV 30. Campos, who is charged with possession of child sexual abuse material in 2018, says his campaign will focus, ready, on safety. Campos told ABC TV 30 he has experienced the laws firsthand, and his team is trying to reform those laws. Here's the report, courtesy of ABC TV 30.
A registered sex offender has launched a Fresno City Council campaign to represent District 7, which includes Old Fig Garden, East Central Fresno, and parts of Southeast Fresno. He would join a crowded field vying for the seat when Councilman Nelson Esparza's term runs out. The controversial political hopeful spoke with Action News reporter Brisa Colon in his first television interview about the criminal past he's not hiding.
Well, I believe Fresno deserves leaders that are honest from the very beginning, not the end. So going into this, I am putting my life out there.
Up front about his status as a registered sex offender, Renee Campos is not running from his past as he runs for office.
I've been given the chance to rehabilitate through the courts and back into the system.
Charged with being in possession of child sex abuse material back in 2018, the Fresno native says he pled no contest to a misdemeanor charge. Now launching his campaign to represent District 7 on the Fresno City Council. He says his focus is on safety.
So I say, let's choose somebody outside the box, somebody who knows the system from inside out. Because I've experienced the laws that we are trying to reform right now.
Fresno County Clerk and Registrar of Voters James Coos says state law does not prevent a registered sex offender from running for office.
Once you leave prison, you're on probation, you actually are allowed in California to reapply and become a registered voter again, which would then make you eligible to be able to run as long as you are living in the proper jurisdiction.
Campos looks to enter a growing field of people vying for the seat. Another candidate says he shouldn't join the race.
I think it should be a disqualifier to serve in public office. If I'm the next council member in District 7 and I can't show up at a school site, how can I best represent the people in the neighborhoods I want to serve?
That last guy makes a little sense, doesn't he? He, too, is running for the city council seat. And it would be hard to do your job if there are certain places you can't go because of your sex offender status, right? If you had to go to a school within the city as part of your duties, you just wouldn't be able to do that. Now, again, the last guy who made sense was a little weird himself. He was wearing some type of turban on his head. I'm not quite sure what nationality or religion or whatever it was. You know, I guess we're just not accustomed to these different types of candidates in the South. I mean, you know, there's no way would he even consider a sex offender running for city council. Campos says he thinks that they need to look outside the box for once. Boy, that's getting really outside of the box. He says they need to choose somebody who knows the system from inside out. Boy, does he know that. He said, because me, I've experienced the laws that we're trying to reform right now. And get this. His campaign website mentions reducing violent crime and clean, safe neighborhoods. I tell you, this guy has some nerve, doesn't he? The candidate who was initially charged with a felony count of possessing child sexual abuse material, get this, he only served 27 days in prison, according to court records, with the rest of his sentence being served as treatment or rehabilitation. So the guy is convicted. He serves 27 days in prison. Now, suddenly, he is an expert on grace and how to keep people safe from people like him. When asked by the Daily Caller News Foundation for comment, Campos replied, I know what it means to face consequences. And when he says he's running to protect children to improve safety, he's dead serious. Campos told the Daily Caller News Foundation, quote, protecting children means enforcing consequences, reducing repeat harm, and building policies that prevent more damage in the first place. Public safety must be about outcomes, not outrage. Wow. Some of the online comments, as you can imagine, one says, I assume he's a Democrat since he meets one essential qualification for running for public office in that party. Another says it's California, so he'll probably win. Wow. So we have a registered sex offender running for office in California. Meanwhile, in Dubai, a 21-year-old American college student was sentenced to 1 year in a Dubai prison after being accused of assaulting and insulting airport staff during a layover. This, according to legal experts, posted in the this too a Daily Caller. Elizabeth Polanco de los Santos was denied boarding on July 15th last year while traveling through Dubai International Airport. She was subjected to unpleasant, humiliating, and offensive searches when traveling from Istanbul to New York via the international hub, according to her attorney. The Elizabeth's experience transiting through Dubai International Airport has left our organization detained in Dubai, calling for increased travel warnings to U.S. citizens, Radha Sterling said in a statement. Elizabeth only intended to transit through Dubai for 6 hours, but she's been there for months on end and has lost $50,000 in expenses and lawyer costs. She's now been told she has a 1-year prison sentence, but that if it all goes well, she'll be only detained until she can book a flight out of the UAE. So I'm not sure if that means she can book a flight as soon after the 1 year or if it means they're going to release her for good behavior. But she's been there since last July. Polanco de los Santos was traveling to Turkey with a friend and had a 10-hour layover in the United Arab Emirates. Authorities told her to remove the doctor-mandated waist training brace that she wore while going through airport security. She hesitantly agreed and was led to a booth where women security officers took the trainer off in a rough manner, according to the press release. The student said, I felt really violated. I felt uncomfortable and afraid. Miss Los Santos attempted to put the trainer back on, which usually requires two people, and asked for help. The security officers blocked her exit, and the student nudged one of them while calling her friend for help. Nudged him. The 21-year-old said, "I gently touched her arm to guide her out of the way, then desperately started crying to my friend for help. After the search came back clear, officials told her she would be detained for touching the female customs officer. She was kept for several hours as the officers filed a complaint accusing De Los Santos of assaulting and insulting them." The moral of this story is, don't fly through Dubai International. I'd always heard Dubai was a nice place to visit. I'd actually consider going there sometime, but I think this probably has sealed the deal on that one. I will not be going through Dubai. They'll lock me. They'll put me under the jail and throw away the key. GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get your 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900. President Trump broke his own record for the longest State of the Union. It was a positive, uplifting speech about the goodness of America. So let's talk about something that happened and something that did not. The president stood before a joint session of Congress to deliver the State of the Union. The House chamber was filled. Senators, representatives, Supreme Court justices, military leaders, guests in the balcony, cameras rolling. It's one of the rare moments in American life when all 3 branches of government are gathered in one room. And yet, a noticeable number of Democrat lawmakers chose not to attend. News organizations focused on the scale of the absence rather than a full roll call. Axios, for example, reported roughly half of House and Senate Democrats skipped the address. NPR and PBS described upward of 30 or more than 24 Democrats attending the People's State of the Union instead. And The Guardian said about 30 members gathered on the National Mall for a counter rally. Now, one report singled out at least one senior House Democrat by name, House Minority Whip Catherine Clark. She is among leadership who did not attend the speech in the chamber, according to ABC News. Now, let's look at this for a moment. This isn't about whether you agree with the president. It's not about party loyalty. It's not even about the policy proposals laid out in the speech. This is about the office of the president, because the State of the Union isn't a campaign rally. It's not a partisan fundraiser. It's a constitutional duty. The president is required to report to Congress on the state of the nation. That moment belongs to the entire country. When members of Congress decide not to show up, they're not just skipping a speech. They're absent from one of the core civic rituals of our republic. And that matters. They're skipping out on their duty. We've seen political tension before. Heated disagreements are nothing new in Washington. Presidents have delivered State of the Union addresses to chambers controlled by the opposing party many, many times in American history. Lawmakers sit stone-faced. They've withheld applause. They've visibly disagreed, but they showed up. There's something fundamentally different between sitting in silence and not being in the room at all. You agree? When elected officials boycott the address, the message isn't just opposition to a particular policy. It risks signaling disregard for the office itself. And that's where this protest is inexcusable. It's disrespectful to the office of the president, not to Donald Trump, but to the office itself, because respect for the office of the president isn't the same thing as endorsing the person holding it. You can oppose an agenda. You can vote against the legislation. You can criticize every line of the speech the next day. There's plenty of cable news outlets out there wanting to hear you. But the office, the constitutional role, deserves a level of institutional respect, and that's what we saw the Democrats withhold last night. That's what separates a constitutional republic from a cable news debate. The presidency doesn't belong to a party. It doesn't belong to a personality. It belongs to the American people. And the State of the Union is one of the few remaining moments where that principle is visible, where adversaries share the same chamber, even if they don't share the same views. Now, some of those skipped the speech would argue that they were just making a statement, that their absence was a form of protest. Fair enough. That's their right. But protests have consequences, especially when they involve the symbols and traditions that hold institutions together. When lawmakers opt out entirely, it kind of deepens the perception that our politics isn't just divided, it's unwilling to even coexist. It's unwilling to even have that conversation, to try to do the work of the people. And that's not a small thing, because Americans are watching. They see the applause lines. They watched last night. They saw the cold reactions. They saw the moments of unity and the moments of tension. But they also noticed the empty seats. And for many Americans, especially those outside of Washington, that bubble that's created within the Capitol, the expectation is very simple. You show up for work. You do the job that your people in your district elected you to do. You can argue. You can fight. You can debate fiercely, but you show up. The State of the Union is not about giving a president a standing ovation. It's about acknowledging the continuity of government. It's about affirming that no matter how divided we are politically, we still operate under one Constitution. We're all equal. And when members of Congress skip that moment, the optics are very powerful. Not because it changes the speech, not because it changes the vote count, but because it chips away at something that's a little more subtle. The shared civic framework that allows disagreement without institutional breakdown. Now, let's be honest. Both parties, at different times in modern history, have flirted with this same kind of protest. This isn't entirely new, but every time it happens, it nudges the bar a little bit lower. If we reach a point where members of Congress only show up when their party controls the White House, then we've reduced one of our most important constitutional moments to just another partisan event. And it's not supposed to be like that. You can be deeply critical of the president. You can believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. You can prepare a rebuttal that airs minutes after the speech ends, which we saw the Virginia governor do last night. But honoring the office by being present, even in your opposition, reinforces the strength of the system itself. That's the distinction. Disagreeing with the president is political. Disengaging from the office risks becoming institutional, and you're just simply not doing your job. And those are two very different things. At a time when trust in government is very fragile, when faith in institutions like the U.S. Congress are strained, symbolic acts carry weight, I believe. Empty seats carry weight. The American experiment has always depended on something deeper than agreement. It depends on shared respect for the roles that we all play, for the process, for the structure. Last night, the president fulfilled a constitutional obligation. The question many Americans are asking today is whether every member of Congress treated that moment with the seriousness it deserves. Because in the end, this isn't about applause lines. It's about whether we still believe the office of the president, regardless who's in it, not Donald Trump, but the office of the president deserves to be treated with dignity in the one chamber where the people's representatives gather. And that's a conversation worth having, not as partisans, but as citizens of this beautiful United States of America. We have to make sure that we hold people accountable. Those Democrats who did not show up last night should be ashamed of themselves. And I hope, I don't have a lot of belief that they will, but I hope that the party will point that out. I hope that someone will hold them responsible and let them know that they embarrassed themselves, they embarrassed their party, and they embarrassed the office that they hold. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. I know I said in the last segment one more thing on the State of the Union, but I do have one more thing on the State of the Union. Did the president's speech pave the way for a chance to a GOP victory in November? You know, a lot of the polls have shown us what historically happens, that the party in power loses the midterms. So the GOP is trying to strategically find a way to buck the trend this year. President Trump is trying to find a way to beat back the Democrats in a year that they traditionally would win. And I got to believe that last night's or this week's speech, Tuesday night, that it probably, a lot of this was calculated. It was being strategic, trying to get the Democrats on record of sitting when you're recognizing U.S. heroes. And boy, one political strategist talked about how a number of different times during the speech is worth $1 billion in advertising. Now, some Republican strategists believe too, and they're pretty excited about it, over what they perceive as a misfire by the Democrat Party during the speech, arguing that some of these incidents are clear defiance and contempt for Trump's message, but they'll be huge for the GOP in the upcoming midterm elections to the undecideds, to the middle of the road. One of the most dramatic moments of Trump's address came when the president challenged every lawmaker in the chamber to stand if they believe their first duty is to protect American citizens rather than illegal immigrants. Here's the exchange.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
You remember this exchange? If you watched, if you didn't, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. As Trump said this, Republicans all stood. As you could hear, they started chanting USA, USA, while the Democrats remained seated, prompting the condemnation from the president. The White House called the moment a must watch, and it's been spread all over social media. Ryan James Gordetsky, he's a GOP strategist with 1776 Project PAC. He was quick to recognize the significance of the moment, writing on X, $1 billion ad just wrote itself because they would not stand. He went on to say Trump just orchestrated a great midterm ad stand if you care about American citizens over illegal aliens, and all the Democrats sat. And it was a moment. It's a moment that they cannot deny because the whole country is going to see this between now and November, I can promise you. Tim Murtaugh, a former Trump senior advisor and campaign communications director, told Fox News Digital it was a huge moment because it forced the Democrats to self-identify as radicals who would rather defend illegal aliens over law-abiding American citizens. And that's a simple message, and that's exactly what it said. Again, there's no denying it. He said there could be no clearer illustration that Democrats root against America when they're not in power. Murtaugh now runs Line Drive Public Affairs. He accused Democrats of being embarrassed to be Americans, whether they're in power or not. You know, I've thought back over that moment because that was one of several defining moments. And I tried to get into the head of a Democrat U.S. House member. Now, it's hard to do. And I was a little bit afraid if I got into the head, I wouldn't be able to get back out. But think about it. Who in their right mind, what elected official in our country would not stand up and go on the record as saying that they're in favor of protecting Americans first over an illegal? Who would do that? I don't care how much you hate Donald Trump. Why would you not want to be on the record as saying, yes, I'm always going to defend an American before I defend a non-citizen? Murtaugh said that moment will certainly be useful, and President Trump knows them so well he was able to make them do it. And he's right. I guarantee you that as the president and his speechwriters and all the people who were involved in the State of the Union address this week, they sat around and they tried to come up with those moments. And boy, they hit pay dirt with that one. Lori Rise is the director of Border Security and Immigration Center at the Heritage Foundation. She, too, said that Democrats clearly showed America they believe their number one duty is to protect illegal aliens, not American citizens. That's just a message, a narrative that the Democrats allowed the Republicans to write this week, and it will be written and rewritten over and over and over as we head towards November. Ms. Rice added, hopefully that opened many more eyes to see that Democrats, to hang on to power, rely on illegal aliens and non-citizens to illegally vote, have their ballots harvested, and for their head count in the U.S. Census to maintain their congressional districts and the number of presidential electoral votes in their states. Now, they found that that's not to be the truth, though. We talked about a couple of weeks ago how, yes, that was the plan for the Democrats as far as the census goes, get all these people in because illegals are counted in the census. So in theory, the Democrats thought by having all these illegals in places like California and New York and around the Chicago area, I guess, that it would help them gain some congressional seats. In reality, the initial surveys show that they're actually going to red states like Texas and Florida are going to pick up seats, not the more liberal Californians. Now, Republicans have predicted that the Democrats' sitting moment will loom large in the midterm elections. Not everybody sees it that way. Former President Barack Obama speechwriter and Democrat strategist John Favreau mocked Republicans for calling attention to the moment, posting on X that it's genuinely so funny how hard they're trying to make this a thing. Well, of course it's a thing. You're way out of... You're out of it if you think that was not a thing, if you think that was not a moment. And for even people who did not even watch the State of the Union. And by the way, there's more people out there who did not watch the State of the Union than I thought there would be. I've been surprised at a number of people that I know who have told me, or I've either seen them post on social media, that they didn't watch. Now, I don't know what that's about. I'd love to get your take on that. Did you watch it? Did you watch the State of the Union? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. Why would you not watch the State of the Union? And is it something that we should be concerned about? Because some of the people I'm talking about are people that are pretty mildly involved. They're not, politicos. They're not people who go to political events all the time, but they're people who read the news, keep up with things, and supporters of Donald Trump. But they said they didn't watch the State of the Union for some reason. Maybe that's something we'll dig into a little bit later. But send me your text. Send me your emails. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. By the way, when you go to MyPillow.com, be sure and use promo code Joey. You can pick up some classic MyPillows. They're regularly $49.98. Now they're only $17.98 with promo code Joey. You can turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with the Made in USA MyPillow mattress topper. You can save up to $100 by just throwing my name around. MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Use promo code Joey to always get the very best price. And order now. Your entire order ships absolutely free. Use promo code Joey every time you go to MyPillow.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. One quick thing, I told you I wouldn't give you an update unless there was really an update, and there appears to be an update on the Nancy Guthrie case. The FBI spent several hours at Guthrie's Arizona home yesterday, we're told, conducting one more sweep for evidence before deciding whether the family can return to the property. The developments, to some, signal that the investigation into the 84-year-old's abduction is at a standstill. They've hit a brick wall, and there's nothing else that they can do at this point until new evidence or new tips are received. The feds arrived at Guthrie's home yesterday morning. They spent about 2 hours there. Sources told the New York Post that they were likely looking for any last pieces of evidence that may have been overlooked before opening the house back up to the Guthries. So, again, that's not necessarily a big breakthrough, but I do think that we're starting to see this huge manhunt to be pulled back down because they just have nothing to go on. And I think the reality is that she's probably not alive. And that's sad to think about, and I'm sorry for the Guthrie family. But if you're realistic when you think about this wasn't about a kidnapping, about a ransom. I've said that many times, but I think it becomes more evident every single day that a kidnapper is not demanding the money in exchange for Miss Guthrie. And I don't think it's a good sign that they haven't been able to make any progress on finding her. They may never find her. I hope they do, so that this family can move on. Because you're as long as you don't know if she's alive or if she's dead, then you have a bit of hope. Just like this story out of North Carolina that I talked about. This mother who 24 years ago disappeared. The family pretty much decided she probably was dead somewhere, and now authorities say she's alive and well. She just wanted out of that family situation. And she still doesn't want to be involved as far as being involved with her children. She had 3 children, left 3 children, said she was going shopping, never returned. I'm sure they thought she was dead. So you always have that bit of hope or that unknown. You just don't know how to believe, what to think. So that's the update. It's not really an update, but that's what we have. Hey, good news out of Columbia this week, Columbia, South Carolina, state's capital. The Senate's revision to legislation cutting state income tax rates would give more South Carolina taxpayers a break in year one, starting from the beginning. Under the amended bill, it was approved 39-5, so almost unanimously. 43% of tax filers would pay less this calendar year, which means tax filings due in spring of 2027. So it's basically going to be retroactive. Almost 23% would pay more, while 35% would see no change. 4 Democrats, 1 Republican voted no. The Senate adopted the amendment without debate, which adjusted what the House had passed last year. Predictions updated last month by the State Revenue and Fiscal Affairs says overall the Senate plan reduces income tax revenue by $308.7 million in its first year. That compares to $119.1 million in the House plan. Now, the House will have to decide whether to agree to the Senate's changes or work towards a compromise, and that's likely. It still could be changed before it's sent to the governor's office. Any tax cut plan will have to become part of the state budget negotiations. Floor debate on the first House spending plan for 2026-27 starts in 2 weeks. So we'll have a better idea then of where this is headed. And this comes after just last week, the Senate also passed a big reduction in property taxes for boats. So I think the legislature has gotten the message that South Carolinians are tired of being taxed. And it's hard to kind of explain sometimes or to justify those taxes when we have billion-dollar surpluses and we're able to give tax advantages, incentives to companies like the Scout Motor in Columbia that's just turned into a boondoggle. The income tax plan, we're told, combined with the bill senators advanced last week that expands the property tax breaks on seniors' primary homes as well. That's another good one. Could reduce what's available for legislators to spend in the coming fiscal year by $556 million, though. Now, this is just a sort of a domino effect. You remove one tax from one bucket, it creates a necessity to raise another tax in another bucket. According to those in Columbia, the bill still decouples the state's income tax code from the federal system. South Carolina is one of just 5 states that have historically based state filings on federal taxable income. So tax filers started their state calculations with less to tax, which is a good thing, I guess. Republicans' arguments for untethering from the federal system, according to some of the legislators there, is that South Carolina shouldn't let its tax code be subject to the whims of Washington. Makes sense to me. But the push to restructure was really fueled by a desire to stop appearing like the highest taxing state in the Southeast, which is what South Carolina has the reputation of being. Too many times when companies have looked at South Carolina to come, it's a great place to come do business. And a lot of these areas are very fast to give tax incentives as far as property taxes. A lot of in lieu of type fees. But then when they look at the income tax, the state income tax, that's when you can have a state like Florida beat us out every time because they don't have state income tax. Now, Florida has their own problem because their property taxes have gotten so expensive. But there's a lot of other ways to skin this cat. And whether this bill, as the version that it is right now, whether or not it ultimately passes when the House and Senate Conference Committee comes together, I think the good news is something is going to pass. We're going to get some type of tax reduction. It may not be this full reduction that we're seeing right now in this bill, but we're going to see our taxes decrease. We're going to see property taxes decrease if you're a senior. We're going to see, as I said, the boat taxes, the property taxes on boats, and we're going to see some type of income tax decrease too. Senator Ross Turner said it actually levels the playing field with our neighboring states. He said we've never really been able to compare apples to apples, saying we're this and North Carolina's this. Now, the massive federal tax package signed by President Donald Trump last summer threw an unexpected twist into legislators' efforts. There's a concern that conforming to the federal tax code's new breaks would reduce state revenue by much more than anticipated. One estimate was $515 million in the coming fiscal year, which would end up, in layman's terms, mean this would cost more than expected. The legislation calls for continued cuts to state income tax rates in the future as the economy grows. Again, we have had, for years now, we've had major surpluses, billion-dollar surpluses, where the legislature literally had to look for ways to spend the money rather than returning it to the people. Maybe we're going to see that change this year. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.